lot of these writing-focused CAE talks have to do with the larger scale paper structuring matters. Things like, how do you research or outline properly? Or how do you build an effective argument? But on the flip side, a few of these videos have to do with more grammatical things like spelling and punctuation and stuff like that. But there's this kind of weird middle ground that we don't talk about a lot in these videos that I want to look at today. Today, we're not talking about paper structuring or punctuation. Instead, we're going to be looking at paragraphs. Now, I want to dive straight in with some of the fundamentals, and then we can go into the details. So here we go. A paragraph is essentially an idea chunk. Yes, that is the formal definition. You can quote me on that. And by idea chunk, what I mean is that every single sentence in your paragraph has to in some way connect back to the big idea of that paragraph, which is actually really convenient because that means when you are sitting here trying to understand what makes for a good paragraph, you can ask yourself this question: are all the sentences in this paragraph about one idea? If you find there's more than one idea in your paragraph, that probably means that you should be splitting it into two. But on the flip side, if you're trying to add something into your paragraph and it is related to that large idea, then add it, because all the sentences then in that paragraph are related to one single idea, which is what we want to do for paragraphing. Sounds simple, right? Well, kind of, but it is a little bit more complicated than that. Because you might start saying to yourself, well, every single sentence has a different idea in it, so that means all my paragraphs should be one sentence. And that is what we don't want. So that leads us to a second question. What is a good paragraph length? So very quickly, I want you to ask yourself, what do you think makes for a good paragraph length? 2 sentences? 5 sentences? 12 sentences? I have students at Writing and Tutoring Services who only write 2 to 3 sentence paragraphs. And then there are other students who basically have 2 full pages worth of a single paragraph. But the reality is that those are both actually probably a little off for what we want in academic writing. An academic paragraph, at least in the North American context, is usually going to be around 4 to 10 sentences long. Not always, but usually between 4 and 10 sentences. The reason for this range is that if you go more than 10 sentences, chances are at that point you're covering more than one big idea. And as we already said, at that point you should be splitting it in half. But on the flip side, if you're doing less than 4 sentences, you probably don't have enough information to actually cover. We're not writing BuzzFeed articles or newspaper articles. We want to write academic papers that very clearly explain our ideas. And for that, our paragraphs need a little bit more substance. In fact, I'd even go so far as to narrow that range further to something like 6 to 8 sentences. 6 to 8 sentences gives you approximately half a page to 3/4 of a page, if we're doing 12-point double-spaced Times New Roman font, which is a very good length for academic papers. And I don't just say that because half to 3/4 of a page paragraphs looks good. It's also because if you can get that 6 to 8 sentence range, you've probably covered all of the key components that makes for a good paragraph. Which raises another question. What is a good paragraph structure? What should a paragraph consist of in order to, meet academic standards? Now, there are a whole bunch of different models that people have used over the years. I'm going to flip through these slides very quickly, so don't feel you need to pause and write them down. There is the test model. That's not so bad. There's also a Peel model, but the one that I want to focus on today with us is the MEAL method. MEAL being an acronym for the 4 main components that every paragraph should have: a main point, evidence, analysis, and some sort of linking sentence. And that's what the rest of this mini-series on paragraphs is going to be about. In the next few videos, we're going to break down each of these components of paragraphs. We're going to look at the main point and how we can express it effectively in paragraphs. We're going to look at evidence and analysis and how we can use those to make stronger arguments in our papers. We're going to look at linking sentences and how they can be used to kind of connect paragraphs together. And then in our last video, we're going to look at cohesion. What tips or strategies can we adopt to help build connections between ideas, both within paragraphs and between paragraphs? So that's all for now. Join me in the next video as we start looking at the main point.